Now, Sinitta, you've had such an amazing pop career over the years, with hits like So Macho and Toy Boy being an 80s favourite. What do you attribute your success to, and how did your pop career begin?
Oh gosh, that's a really long, loaded question. My pop career, well, I started in musical theatre, doing shows like The Wiz and Smokey Joe's A Little Shop of Horrors and Cats. And so I was sort of singing and all dancing anyway. And of course my mother's also a singer, so I kind of grew up backstage learning the ropes. And then I signed a record deal when I was very young with Magnet Records, and we put a couple of tracks out that did quite well on the sort of dance scene, but nothing crossed over into the pop charts until I signed with the very young Simon Cowell, and we put out So Macho.
And tell me, out of all your hits that you've produced, what is your favourite one and why?
My musical hits. I would say my favourites would be something like... I loved Love and Affection, actually. I really loved that, which was a cover of one of Joan Armatrading's songs that I did.
Wonderful. And tell me, Sinitta, when you're not on the X Factor, what do you do in your spare time to kind of unwind?
Oh, to unwind, because I was going to say most of it is spent with my children, my little toddlers. Well, they're not toddlers now, they're 6 now. But that's not very unwinding time. I would say, what do I do to unwind? Probably once my children are in bed, or if I have a night off and then when I'm going out and I'll have a glass of wine with my friends, just sitting and chatting really. But I go to the gym every day in the morning for an hour, and even though that's not relaxing time, I do find it relaxing ultimately.
Of course, and you're in such good shape. In fact, a lot of articles written about you always praise you for looking so good and looking so young. I mean, I look back at your old music video and you still look the same, so youthful.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
And what do you attribute your, well, I suppose your everlasting beauty to? Do you think it's genetic?
Do you know what? I do go to the gym every day. I do... what else do? I do eat healthily the majority of the time, although I have to say, since I came out of the jungle, I have been kind of spoiling myself a bit too much, because you lose so much weight in there that you come back and kind of think you can eat anything and everything, trying to replace it. Now I've actually gone the other way, so I'm not so happy about that. But, I exercise, I drink lots of water, I, don't drink excessively, I don't smoke.
Good clean living.
Yeah, I do, but it is an effort. It's not. I wish I could say that I can just eat and drink and do what I like, and it's all natural, but it's not.
But I think when I look back to your time on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, you were so brave, and I think a lot of people admired you for the way that you dealt with the tasks, because I know
I was brave?
It wasn't easy, Sinitta.
Oh, that's hilarious, because most of my friends thought that I was pretty useless, that I made such a fuss and everything. But I see it the way you see it, because I think, look, I probably did make a fuss, but at least I tried. I never actually just said no. Well, apart from when they wanted to put me in the coffin and fill it with cockroaches.
That was so cruel, wasn't
my
it?
Limit. But and I'm glad that I did go then, because if I'd had to stay another day, I would have had the goldfish bowl on my head and that being filled with things, and I wouldn't have gone through with that either. So I kind of tried everything else that was put in front of me, at least.
But I did admire you for how you dealt with it, because I mean, let's face it, if we put ourselves in your shoes, like that's not an easy thing, to be faced with all those awful spiders and things. Now tell me, let me see, you've got your latest talent project called Atanus, which is Sinitta spelled backwards. Now tell me everything there is to know about that.
It's my talent site. Atanus is my name backwards. And because even though I managed to have a successful pop career and do quite well, I think that if I'd known everything I know now back then, that I could have gone even further and my career would have been, even more successful. So I started Atanus to help up-and-coming performers who want to go into the music or theatre or film industry, just to give them the benefit of my experience, to try to help them, and also to sort of find acts that I can get involved with and nurture and maybe work with as well.
Because, you know, Sinitta, when I saw you on The X Factor and how you really work so hard behind the scenes, I have to admire all you've done for all the acts that appeared on the show, because I remember when it came to judges' houses and you were with Louis picking the talent for last year's show, I just thought, you know, you've really got a good ear for music and you've got a good ear for good music, and I think it's about time that you get into the full control of the judging seat, shall we say.
Oh, well, I mean, I would love that. It's always been one of my dreams to sort of grow to the next level. But you know, it's still been good, because being able to work with Simon so closely and Louis and, of course, all that amazing talent, I've learned so much. So from being an artist myself and then nurturing, you know, this generation's pop stars, I've just felt that I had a lot to pass on and to give, and to people who weren't making it through, because, you know, thousands and thousands of people audition for X Factor or line up and queue up to audition, but only 12 get through to the finals. And what happens to, you know, the other, you know, hundreds of thousands that, you know, never got seen or didn't get heard? And I suppose Atanus really was for those people. And, you know, I found a few rough diamonds, I have to say.
But you think you can make a success out of them? I'm sure you can.
Oh, yeah, I really think so. I mean, I've found people that I think are really phenomenal, and some really young kids as well that, you know, I think could be world class, that could compete with some of the American stage school children. And these are kids that have never been to stage school or had any formal training, but just have that natural talent. And as soon as you do a bit more work with them, it's amazing how they blossom.
Now, the talent that you've recruited for Atanus, will they appear on a show, on a TV show?
They could do. We're in talks at the moment with a big company about them appearing in a show all about them. So that's my dream, and I'm really hoping that will happen, because they've worked so hard. They really deserve it, and of course it'd be great for me to be able to showcase them like that.
And of course, we mentioned there about Louis Walsh. You seem to have got great chemistry, on-screen professional chemistry with him. You get along so great, and you seem like really good mates.
Yeah.
What's it really like working with Mr. Showbiz, so to speak?
Hilarious. I have to say that, you know, Louis Walsh is a very, very funny guy. I don't know if people realise just how naturally funny he actually is. And I spend most of my time with Louis giggling my head off, literally. But I've known him since I was very young. He used to promote me when I was releasing my pop singles back in the 80s, and he'd bring me over to Ireland and get me lots of sort of gigs and take me out afterwards with all my dancers and everything. And he was always so much fun, really hard-working, though, high work ethic, and he definitely kept me busy. Sometimes we'd do 4 or 5 gigs in one night, but we were laughing and enjoying ourselves the entire time, and it was almost one of those situations where you felt like you'd gone to Ireland and had a wee break, a holiday, and got paid for it.
I know. God, that's amazing. And I didn't really realise that you've known him for so long.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So
the reason why I got to go to Ireland when I was younger.
Wonderful. And tell me, Sinitta, we mentioned Ireland there. Of course, you were recently on the Craig Doyle show for RTE.
Oh, how was that? Because I missed it. It was on the other night.
I saw it. You can go to rte.ie and check out the player.
Yeah, I'd like to see
I'm
that.
sure
Craig
you can
Doyle
see it
show.
from England, but it actually turned out great. You came across so well, as always.
Well, it was funny, and his other guests were very funny as well. Was it Pansy?
That's right, the drag queen. It was so funny.
Yeah.
And you know, it seemed like you all had a great time as well. But tell me now, when you're in Dublin, where do you like to go? Like, do you have any particular favourite spot that you like to visit when you're here?
Oh gosh, well, see, he always takes me. There's a big bar. I think it's actually a gay bar, you know.
The George,
one
is
of
it?
the big hotels.
Yeah.
And we used to go there. Also, there's a club that I use. Oh, no, you see, I can't think of the name of the club that brings me over a lot. I'm going to get the name. You know, it's one of those things that's on the tip of your tongue. And
not to worry.
And I like the Morrison's Hotel as well.
Lovely.
Love the Morrison's.
And do you go to Grafton Street?
I'm going to tell you the name of the club when they're just going to get the name from me now.
Oh,
I've played it a few times, and they always have me back. And I always end up on a whirlwind trip where I arrive maybe early evening, have time to check into the hotel and get ready, go and do the show, and then we stay out through the early hours, and I'm usually on the 6 a.m., something like that, sort of plane back again.
So it's kind of the champagne jet set lifestyle. But tell me, you're good friends with Mariah...
The Kremlin.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. You're good friends with Mariah Carey.
Yes.
And you must have known Mariah since the 80s.
Oh, gosh, yes, that's right, yes. I knew Whitney as well, so that,
Did you? Oh, God, I know. It was so sad to lose Whitney at such a young age. And obviously, I'd say she was a major influence on your music as well. When you were on the pop scene back in the 80s, was Whitney a big influence?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, I remember sitting in the Hippodrome watching Whitney on the big screen, the I Want to Dance With You videos, which, of course, choreographed by our very own Arlene Phillips, and just thinking, oh, my gosh, I want to be her. I want to be her best friend. If I was a man, I'd want to marry her. I mean, I just thought she was everything. Because previous to that, I'd been sort of all about sort of Diana Ross and Donna Summer, who were all a lot older, but suddenly this was somebody kind of close to my age. And, I was so excited when she turned up on the scene.
And her music is so timeless as well, Sinitta. And what would be your favourite Whitney song?
Oh, gosh, there's so many. But, the one that really makes me think of Whitney, I think, is I Want to Dance With Somebody.
Yes, it's so Whitney.
It was just electrifying for me, yeah.
And that was Whitney when she was on her peak, just so happy and bubbly and...
fresh and, new onto the scene and almost kind of set free, because she'd done her sort of album of ballads, which were all very sophisticated, very impressive, beautifully sung. But, when she came out with I Want to Dance With Somebody, it was like, okay, now
she has arrived.
Yes, this is it.
And tell me, like Mariah, do you like her most recent music is so different from the stuff in the 80s, like Dream Lover and all of those good hits. Like, of course, she had like Touch My Body, which was a brilliant hit. Do you like any of her modern stuff now in particular?
Oh, do you know what? I love The Emancipation of Mimi.
Yeah, that was a brilliant album.
That was a real collaboration with a lot of young DJs and producers that she'd never worked with before. And again, kind of a departure from the Mariah we all sort of grew up knowing and loving, but a brilliant departure, because I think it's one of my favourite albums by her.
And tell me, when she's in London, does she ever meet up with you for a couple of drinks or a chat?
Not recently, but a couple of years ago, yes, and we went clubbing and had a great time.
I know, and it
all changes when you have children.
It does,
yes.
And of course, your kids are your life,
Yes,
and
right.
you're very, very close to them, and have they shown any talent for the music industry as of yet? Are they singing or?
They're all singing and all dancing. I'm not quite sure how good it is at the moment, though. But it's hard to tell as well whether they're really trying. But they love to compete with the shows on. And if I'm sitting watching The Voice or Britain's Got Talent or something, I have to compete with them, because they are coming in, doing their own auditions for me at the same time, and it's like, sit down, get out of the way, I can't see the TV, but I think they love the whole idea of show business, but I'm not sure how much natural talent there is really there. There's lots of jumping up and down and pulling funny faces at
Well, you have to start somewhere. It sounds like they're born entertainers.
Not where you start.
It's where you finish, exactly. But it's wonderful chatting to you, Sinitta. And tell me now, just before we go, about your future projects. Are any plans to release new material in the near future?
Funnily enough, I was in the studio yesterday with the production team, recording a couple of tracks, and I really enjoyed it. I was quite nervous at first. I didn't let on that I was, but it's been a while since I've been in the studio. But it was a lot of fun. The fact that we managed to do 2 tracks in 2 hours was pretty impressive, but I think that's also down to today's technology and equipment. It used to take, all night to make one record, but, doing all the backing vocals, all the ad-libs, lead vocals, everything, took us 2 hours on 2 tracks, and I thought, you know what, I really enjoyed that. So, let's see what happens.
Well, I'm sure if it's anything like your early material, we're in for a pleasant surprise. And
thank you.
Sinitta, tell me, of course, X Factor is on the verge of coming back once again onto our screens. Have you been behind the scenes as of yet on the show for this year's show?
I haven't been at all this year yet, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
I'm sure there's going to be a shake-up.
I was in touch with Jerry just before she went in for her first day.
Oh, Mary was lovely.
Judge.
And she's done so well, Mary Byrne, hasn't she?
Mary Byrne, oh yes, Mary Byrne's done really well.
Your fashion secrets, what are they? How do you attribute yourself to looking so great in all the different outfits? You always have such glamorous clothes.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm petite. I'm a very small woman, so I think I sort of have to dress. I can't always wear what I like to wear. I'd love to have been, I think, sort of 5'7.5" and be able to wear everything I want to. But I think I've just over the years sort of found my look, or I'm not really sure. I just tend to reach for what I like, depending on the occasion. I do have a real sense of occasion, so if it's something a bit festive, then I like to zhuzh it up a bit. If it's any opportunity to be a little bit theatrical or comical, I'll throw that in as well. But I think my everyday style is quite conservative, to be honest.
Yeah, but I did love your special outfit that you wore for the X Factor once with the banana leaves. That was so funny, but you looked elegant in it.
By Robbie Williams last year, which was fantastic. That was lots of fun.
But he didn't look as good as you did in it, honestly, really. But what was I going to say? And whose idea was it to come up with that banana leaf outfit? Was it your own?
It just happened. It wasn't even pre-planned. It happened almost the morning of the shoot, because Simon wanted me to wear a skimpy bikini, and like that, for a woman, you kind of, especially if you're going to be on television, but I think at the best of times, we kind of want a bit of warning if we're to be appearing anywhere in a bikini, especially on TV in front of 20 million people. And I just wasn't in that mode. I brought a sweet little dress to wear that covered all the right areas and accentuated the right areas. So I showed them my dress. They said it was boring and that I'd be much better in a bikini, and sort of all ganged up and said, oh, come on. And I thought, I'm not going to wear a bikini. And I went out and with a friend, actually a gay American friend who was in LA at the time, who went out shopping with me to find a bikini. And we ended up sort of at this British nursery buying banana leaves. But the secret to it was that even though it looked quite a risque outfit, the banana leaves actually covered more of me than a bikini would have.
But that's true. It was modesty with yet a flair for fashion at the same time. It was very chic. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see all these banana leaf bikinis in our shops anytime soon. You've started the trend. But, I have to say, it's just been an honour and a privilege chatting to you, Sinitta.
Thank you
and
so
I
much.
hope to see you on the X Factor. And by all means, if you're ever in Dublin again, we'd love to have you in person on the show if you like.
Oh, thank you. That would be great. And we know next time we're coming over, we'll be in touch.
Oh, that would be fantastic.